weekly Chairman's Update, back in the office in Bellevue after a couple of updates that we've done from out on the road. And this time of year, at this point in the election cycle, I am on the road a lot. I'm out of the office most days, in fact, going to events of various sorts, fundraisers, rallies, other things like that. We tended to do our events kind of very local focused this time around, but we will have a couple of bigger rallies and events as election day draws near. Ballots are not quite in your hands yet, in people's hands yet. They will probably start mailing out later this week and early next. Each county, each of the 39 counties, does it a little differently in its own way and within a small window in its own time. But generally by October 18th or so, you should have your general election ballot in your hands. And then, of course, you have about 2 weeks, a little more, to review everything, fill out your ballot, and turn it in. The deadline is November 5th. That's Election Day. But we are encouraging people to turn their ballots in as early as possible this cycle. That helps with our ballot harvesting efforts. Now, to the content of our update this week, I want to talk for a minute about the 4 initiatives that will be on the top of the ballot, literally the first items on your general election ballot when you do receive it. We talked about the initiatives a lot, but I still am getting questions from people out in the world saying, well, exactly how are we supposed to vote on these initiatives? Does yes mean we support the underlying policies? Does yes mean we repeal them? How does it work? And I'm going to go through it one more time, although we talked about it before, and probably we'll talk about it again. But there will be 4 initiatives at the top of your general election ballot. And we are recommending, of course, a yes vote on all 4 initiatives. I'll say briefly what each of the 4 initiatives does. The first initiative, numerically, is Initiative 2066. That is the initiative that restores and protects consumer choice with regard to using natural gas for heating or cooking in your home or your business. There have been several moves afoot in Olympia to limit or restrict or even ban the use of natural gas in homes and businesses in Washington state. This is really a nonsensical proposition. Natural gas is a relatively clean energy source and a relatively efficient one. And whether you want to use natural gas or not, we believe that that should be every consumer's choice, whether to use natural gas or not. And if you want to use it, and if you don't, don't. The initiative 2066 protects the choice to use natural gas or not. The next initiative, again, at least numerically, is Initiative 2109. And Initiative 2109 repeals the controversial Washington state capital gains excise tax. Now, in most of the world, capital gains taxes are considered a form of income tax. And when this tax was passed into law just a couple of years ago, there were immediate court challenges that various sections of the Washington state constitution and state statute prohibit an income tax. Those lawsuits went all the way up to the state Supreme Court, which decided that for the sake of Washington state, a capital gains tax is an excise tax. That means a tax on transactions, not on income. This is a highly controversial and frankly eccentric opinion from the state Supreme Court. What Initiative 2109 says is, doesn't matter whether it's an income tax or an excise tax or a Dungeness crab, it's repealed. And you've heard a lot already from people, particularly people in the tech industry, who think that this capital gains tax is a job killer and an innovation killer. And I agree with them. I think they're right. It's a bad tax. We have other forms of tax in this state that generate plenty of money for the state and local governments. We're just not managing that money well. Let's repeal the capital gains tax and make sure that the budget writers in Olympia do their jobs more effectively. The next initiative, 2117, may be the one you're hearing about the most. There certainly have been a lot of ads about it on TV and elsewhere, both for and against it. Initiative 2117 repeals the state's disastrous cap and trade tax scheme, the signature failure of the Jay Inslee regime. We need to repeal this awful state tax that's driving up not just the cost of gasoline and diesel, although that's really what it's done the most damage to, but driving up the cost of groceries, driving up utility bills. It's an awful tax. It purports to reduce the amount of pollution, but doesn't reduce any pollution, and in fact doesn't even measure if there is a reduction in pollution. It's a complete grift and designed to force working families and working people in Washington state to pay for the clean energy schemes of billionaire trust fund babies. It's a bad deal, and it needs to be repealed. And finally, of the four initiatives, the fourth is Initiative 2124. This doesn't repeal, but makes optional, opt out, the state payroll tax that funds the state's snake-bitten long-term care benefit scheme administered by the bureaucrats in the state of Washington. The scheme itself is not a very good bargain for anyone paying into it, and under current law, working people are forced to pay this payroll tax. It's taken out of their check before they receive it, their paychecks, and it's just a bad deal. It's not a very good benefit for the amount of money taking out of people's paychecks. Initiative 2124 allows people to opt out of the scheme and get that money back into their paycheck. Now, a few words about these initiatives. Of course, I believe you should vote yes on all four. They are good tax reforms, and in the case of the natural gas initiative, consumer protection, vote yes, pay less on all four. You're going to hear ads and rhetoric on TV and radio and social media and digital that these initiatives defund things. That's a lie. The initiatives don't defund anything. They are not retroactive. They're only forward-looking, and they only affect tax revenues coming into the state on a going forward basis. So they don't defund anything, but they will put some pressure on the legislature in Olympia to do a better job of prioritizing how it spends existing money in the various state budgets. That's a good and healthy thing. And we're seeing some acknowledgement, grudging acknowledgement in the mainstream media about the good that these initiatives will do. The Seattle Times actually has editorialized in favor of at least two of them, the natural gas consumer choice initiative and the 2124, that payroll tax reform. It's a little more muddled on the other two, but I think far and wide around Washington state, both media figures and even some politicians from all sides of the aisle are acknowledging that these are good reforms for working people in this state. So again, the tagline is easy on all four initiatives. Vote yes, pay less. That's it for this week. I'll talk to you again next week. We'll focus on some of the other items that you're going to see in your very crowded general election ballot coming out. And as I say, about this time next week, most of you should be receiving your general election ballots in the mail, so we will talk about that a little more too. But for now, stay strong and be well. I'll talk to you again soon.